roving mic around here, please? Like, let the chair convene the meeting if you can.
Don't forget to press record on the.
It's already
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, it is 5:30. We'll call this meeting of the Paris Planning and Zoning Commission to order.
I'll call the meeting of the Paris City Council to order. It is 5:30 p.m.
On the dot.
Okay, I would like to thank everybody for attending our meeting this evening. I'm pleased to introduce Nathan Spaulding here, a developer, for our project that's before you this evening.
We have a citizens forum on the agenda. We probably should get that out of the way first.
Oh, forgot about that.
You want me to do it? You want to do it?
I should know by now.
All right, next item on the agenda, the Citizens Forum. Persons desiring to address the City Council or Planning and Zoning Commission must limit their presentation to no more than 2 minutes. Unless an item is posted on the agenda, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the Council and Commission from responding to any comments other than to refer the matter to a future agenda, to an existing policy, or to a staff person with specific factual information. Claims against the city, council members, or employees, as well as individual personal appeals, are not appropriate for the Citizens Forum. With that said, the Citizens Forum is now open. Does anyone wish to come forward and speak? Seeing none, we will close the Citizens Forum. You can have this back now.
Thank you for handling our formalities. So again, very excited to introduce our prospective developer here in our community, be new to Paris, Texas. We've been working some time in advance with a look at development of the site. And we have an opportunity here. The reason that I felt it was appropriate to call a joint work session of both bodies here is we have a substantial land area. It's 200 acres nearly in size. There are some substantial components for which Nathan will walk you through here this evening. We also have a topic regarding a potential change in the city's master thoroughfare plan that will be talked about as well for this. The area of this particular development is guided currently under our current plan for future low-density residential. We have a very different concept that's been developed for this, for a mixed-use development, which would fall under our planned development type process within our community. So that's some of the reason of the background why I appreciate you all showing up and attending this evening. So I think without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Nathan and his team to introduce the project and a little bit background about your development company as well.
Yes, thank you, and thank you all for being here after business hours at 5:30 on Thursday here today. We're really excited about this project. Well, first of all, my name is Nathan Spaulding. On my team, we have Tessina Painter with Strata Commercial and David Reck with DHR Engineering on Zoom. Sorry, hopefully that was able to pick that up. Was David saying something?
Yes.
Hi, hello, I just said hi.
Okay. Yes, David Reck, DHR Engineering is on Zoom with us today. So I passed out a site plan. We're really excited about this property and the opportunities that it provides. I guess I was asked earlier today where the Forest Brook Estates came from, so I guess we could start there. Just there's a flood zone kind of portion of the property on the north end, and there's that creek that runs through town going through there, and we ran some other metrics with the forest name and came up with Forest Brook Estates with that creek running through what could be a future city park. So that's where we came up with the name. And kind of some backstory on this development process. When I first got this property under contract, we were planning on doing almost all residential, mixed between single-family homes and townhomes and mostly all residential up until that flood zone between Jefferson, off of Jefferson Road, and potentially connect over to the loop with a 100-foot easement, or with a 100-foot piece of property that connects the eastern portion of the property to the loop. And then we heard and found out later on, after we were working on that plan, that there is a city master plan to have a thoroughfare connect the loop to South Collegiate. And that is where, when we switched gears and we came up with this site plan that's on page 4 of the brochure. It shows the whole 196 acre plan there. And this is what we came up with after learning about the planned city thoroughfare. So why we requested to meet with both P&Z and the city council was to get some feedback on this city plan for a thoroughfare coming through here, and to show our vision of what's possible with that thoroughfare as far as a development goes in this 196 acres. If we pull the trigger and close on this property, the phase 1 that you see on page 5, it zooms in, that's about 70 acres right off of Jefferson. We would start on that right away because we couldn't afford to wait to get development going, to wait on this thoroughfare. So this is what we would start on first with plans for that thoroughfare to come in. This is what the first phase would look like. One of the reasons, like I was saying, that we want to meet with you all tonight is if this thoroughfare does not come through, we would have to change our whole master plan here because commercial and mixed use couldn't be supported. The layout of the single family streets between Jefferson and the potential thoroughfare would have to be completely different. We would run that differently to maximize lot spaces without a thoroughfare coming through there. So before we closed and before we would get our plans finalized, we wanted to make sure that it's realistic with a city thoroughfare plan, or if we need to go back and plan for, like we originally did before we knew about the thoroughfare, plan in a different direction. So we're appreciative to have your time and to hear your thoughts about the potential with that thoroughfare and your thoughts on this site plan. David can get into, he's ran some preliminary cost estimates for a thoroughfare for the cost that would run from the loop all the way to South Collegiate, what that, a ballpark cost of his prediction on what that would cost. And we can get into hopefully your thoughts on the layout of the site plan and go from there. And I guess we could start with questions after looking at this brochure. I think, did everyone get this beforehand?
Yes.
Okay. Before I keep going, is there anyone that has any questions on any aspects of the site plan? Or
Andrew, what's the exact point of contact from the loop to Collegiate? Do we have an exact layout from where the thoroughfare is supposed or planned to tie into the loop to where it's going to tie into Collegiate?
So that's a great question. The answer to that is we have a rough alignment that we've looked at. Specifically in terms of this proposal, it's a change from the adopted thoroughfare plan that we currently have under the city's adopted plan. As a part of the formal process of bringing this forward, it would involve an amendment to the master thoroughfare plan, upgrading it from a collector street. Basically, it was following this alignment where you see it ties in right now to the loop, and it ran on a straight diagonal just about right through our ball fields, around the Civic Center, through the woods where we hold archery tournaments, and kind of about where the pump track and that area is, just maybe a little north of there. Real low, we have a lot of water areas there. We don't think that alignment was well engineered per se as a part of the original alignment. It's just that there was a former railroad bed that was through there, and it just seemed like a natural alignment. So we would be taking a further look at this, where it would align with Collegiate, potentially be on the south side of the Veterans Memorial. and then we would realign Collegiate to come in at a more right angle, potentially to this, and then it'd be a straight shot through from the loop all the way over to South Church on New Jefferson. It would all become New Jefferson. So that's kind of the concept that has been, sketched out at this point. Again, if we bring this forward as a part of a formal rezoning process, amendment to the master thoroughfare plan would be part of that. We'd also be updating the comp plan for the land uses and so forth. So one thing I'd like to do is talk a little bit more about how this might potentially be a public-private partnership, similar to what we may be discussing in the short term with North Lamar School District about city participation on a collector street as a part of that project. We're having some initial staff discussions with the developer on how that might occur with this project. To construct a thoroughfare plan, it's something we'd ultimately, ask TxDOT to take over for the city, potentially, which might involve a swapping of Old Jefferson over in deference for a realignment of that highway that's a TxDOT road, Old Jefferson, that comes in from outside the loop, and then it bends around the south side of this site where this is showing it would be accessed. This is Jefferson. So I've had some early on discussions with TxDOT about this. There would be an openness to dialogue. There may be some limited participation from TxDOT in a city developer shared road construction project. But in terms of what the developer would be involved with responsibility for, it would be internal service within their development, and we would have to further develop what portions would be city versus developer responsibilities and potentially how that would be paid for. And if I could, just for a minute, I'd like to invite our city manager, Grayson, to comment just a little bit about the process we would use if necessary to partner.
Well, in order to pay for a thoroughfare, we probably have to bond that project, and so because we're probably talking a significant number range there for that participation, and so we'd be looking at a bond for that project there. So I do not know whether that's a ballot measure or if that's council approval. I've not had a chance to do that kind of research yet. But given the dollar range we're talking about here, we don't have the funds in our account to be able to raise that, so we'd have to be doing a bond. But that's perfectly a lot doable. So.
I was going to say, the estimate is $7 million.
$7 million. $7 million for the thoroughfare.
Okay, we can let David confirm
Well, David
that.
confirmed that, but yeah, just so you know, so people aren't guessing, because big numbers can be,
Yeah.
5 million or 50 million.
I was guessing in that 5-6 range there, so that's $7 million.
All right,
Inflation.
everybody, what you got in your pockets?
Well, it's all chipped in.
Thank you, Grayson.
Page 7 kind of shows a rough depiction of where we envision that thoroughfare going instead of north of the baseball fields through that flood zone and through those woods, coming south of the Civic Center.
There's south of the Civic Center, that's where the thoroughfare is supposed to go,
Yes, that's
All the
where
way-
we propose it.
all the way to the loop, right?
Right.
Right.
How does that affect private property owners?
It doesn't, it's all,
Currently between this property and Collegiate is land owned by Paris Junior College. That would be in between there. So we would naturally, at some point, need to bring PJC to the table for dialogue about this as well. But there's also an opportunity to phase projects in. They can either be built all at once or they can be phased. It just largely depends on, exactly how all the cards come together with this new development. And again, I want to emphasize the fact we're talking about a large undeveloped area of the community. This is new development. This is new ground. This is huge new opportunity for a mixed use of commercial, higher density and low density. You've got some creative design elements as a part of this, including a roundabout that might become a first phase of the development to get you in and out of Old Jefferson and waiting for a future phase to come through. Because this type of a thoroughfare plan, if the project moves forward, there could be several steps and it could be a multi-year process easily. Gary, let me bring the microphone over to you here.
I think I'm louder than the mic. No, I just have a follow-up. When you get past the ballparks and you go toward the loop, isn't that private property? Back when you start going towards the loop, because there's a lot of farmhouses there, a lot of land that goes back to where you would connect with the loop.
That's the property we have under contract.
Do you have the
All
CAD
the
map
all the way
where
to
we can look at
271? I mean, all the way to the
Right,
loop?
see that?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you look at the site plan, right here, the property that they have under contract is right here, this fronts on the loop. This is the loop highway right here.
That doesn't front on the loop right there.
Yeah, there's a, right next to that is.
There's a 100-foot stretch of land that goes from your cursor to the loop, but there is land between that, but that is part of the land under contract.
Can you,
that 100
can you
feet.
pull up the Lamar CAD on there?
It's a right-of-way area.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
So it's that enclave right next to phase one on page 7, is that correct? Just like right next door,
Right,
if you
right.
follow that
So-
same.
If you see the page that says Phase 1, the upper left-hand portion of that red triangle, as soon as you hit the left side of the red, all the way to the loop is under contract. We have under contract. So you would just have that Paris Community College land west of the property that would not be something we have under contract.
You say everything east
Everything.
of Phase 1 is under contract on that thoroughfare?
Yeah, everything above Phase 1 and east of Phase 1 is under contract.
Okay, that's the land. That-
You see where the road
Yeah,
ends
he
on the
answered
east
it.
side?
That's the land I was talking about.
Yeah, he's got a piece of road that goes all the way out.
Okay.
So I got a quick question for you. This roadway from, and like you said, from Collegiate to the loop is, you said estimated around 7 million, correct?
To do that, that was
It's about 6,600, or 66,
6.6.
about 6,600 feet long. From the loop to South Collegiate. David, are you still on?
Hello, yes, I can hear over next to the microphone. I think we were talking about cost estimation on the arterial street. So yeah, I can speak to rough order of magnitude estimating. I'm using a TxDOT metric that we did when we were out of the city of Dallas, and it was the old rule of thumb for municipal roadway was $1 million per lane mile. This was a 2005 number, and with costs of inflation, current market conditions, currently we find that a municipal letting is about the magnitude of 1.5 million per lane mile. So based on our itemized cost estimates we did for the development and the thoroughfare and right-of-way take, there's some variables here, franchise utilities, right-of-way costs, things of these nature. But using the 1.5 million per lane mile metric off 6,500 or so linear feet, rough order of magnitude, we're talking 1.25 miles times 4 lanes, and that gets us around a little over a 7 million number, plus or minus, is a rough, again, just a preliminary estimate.
And then the other follow-up question I have for this, I would say not just for phase 1, if you can break it out, maybe phase 1 and the total project, what's the anticipated investment slash, have you guys done, I would assume you've done some sort of study on economic impact, correct?
Right, we have internal pro formas on, as far as horizontal development.
Yeah.
Or when you say economic impact, are you referring?
From commercial to tax base.
Right, right.
Oh.
That, I would have to say, I've done a little bit of stuff. I did not have everything complete, so I only have to rock.
Just roughly.
Okay, yeah, sorry, can you hear me now? Basically, we're assessing how much is going, can we go back to the position of the one that shows the whole plan? Yeah, this right here.
This map is a problem.
You X'd off a couple there, I don't know if you.
on this page right here,
Page 4.
page 4, when you look at page 4 and you see what we're doing there, you can see that the orange area to the right is straight commercial. And what we don't know is how much of the red, the idea, I'll just speak, the purple right there would be donated to the school for an elementary school or some, whatever their needs are. We're assuming from the conversation it'll be an elementary school. And then, so the area right across from that and right next to that, we would do townhomes, but this is all mixed use. And then we would start commercial over here and then gradually let these grow, because you can't put in, you know, that much commercial and expect it wouldn't fill. It would be a lot of empty space. So that's kind of a gradual thing. Also, there's an opportunity for a whole nother project that would be exciting, but I can't talk to you about just yet, that I know you guys are heavily interested in, that might take up this as a change later. So we want to kind of hold back this area. In general, I did do some research, and we don't know how much we're building here, but we should be looking at, as far as sales per year, at between $500 and $750 per square foot of whatever we do. So if you calculate that, I would estimate that if we did just this section right here, you look at $500 to $700 a square foot in sales, and we're probably going to do 30,000 square feet. You can do the math on that. It's going to be staged, right? And the reason I give that range is if you do something that's fast, you have a drive-through, you have a restaurant, you have, I mean, I've got interest from drive-through donuts with really nice, not just your cheap stuff, like they have a really cool vibe. And maybe some sit-down, I'm talking to some people offline that are friends, and putting down some really nice, like, sit-down restaurant that will give you some options. Those are going to give you more than, we also want to leave it open for some local entrepreneurs that may want some kind of shop. They're not going to do $750 a square foot. They're going to be more in that $500 range. So we have to leave the whole thing open and see how it best serves the community. But if you want to calculate the range, it's going to be gradual. We can't say, oh, we're going to have all this in right away. That's not possible. But the more homes we get here, and as we have strong interest in the development for the multifamily, and the more you guys work on bringing in the businesses and we get these things in, it comes together, not over the course of 1 year, not 2 years, 5 to 10 years, you're going to see, because that's a lot of retail. And I've been at this a minute, and I have seen retail be built before it's built, and it's really tragic, and it slows the process because people see empty buildings, they don't want to go there. So what we want to do is create something really close to the loop that's really exciting, and then we want to create over here some townhomes that are really nice. And then as we get just far enough away from the school that we are far enough for real retail, because you have to be careful, because a nice little restaurant wants to serve alcohol, so you have your 600 feet, right? So we want to have some of this, and then we have a little bit. Then we want to put in something in there to have a nice dynamic, so the teachers and then, you know, other people after, want to go after work and go have a nice meal. There will be something there as well as the people in there. But it's a gradual development process. But if you think in terms of the tax revenue off of $500 to $750 per square foot, because I did that research, it's just a matter of step by step, what are we going to do?
Sure.
Okay? And then if you do a valuation on that, in terms of, you can take the rental base and the cost per square foot, we're probably looking at the value being at about starting $350 to $400 a square foot would be your taxable value on the building. So you're going to bring in more sales tax revenue and you're going to bring in property tax revenue, but it's not going to happen overnight. But it happens once you have one thing. You know how it goes. You've seen it everywhere. You put in one thing and then the next thing, and you get traffic there. You know, you've got the thoroughfare coming through, and people are on their way to the convention center, they're on their way to the elementary school, and they're stopping, and they're buying stuff, and then we can put more in. We have, especially the residential density. And so our goal is fill up that residential in here, fill up that multifamily, you know, get this thoroughfare going, get the elementary school in, maybe another project. It's just going to create its own dynamic.
Can y'all touch on the school?
Right, maybe this is a good time to do that.
Yeah.
So we had conversations with Paul Jones at Paris ISD. We were thinking it would be with this much residential here, and we were looking around at the Paris School District where the schools were. I noticed there wasn't an elementary school on this portion of town, and with this much density going in, I thought, you know, there might be a need for another elementary school, especially with that brand new, or fairly new, huge high school right there that could support more growth, but I didn't know about maybe there's a need for elementary school. So we reached out, and he said that they're really excited about it, that he said that with this much density going in here with residential and more families coming into Paris, especially living in this area, they definitely see a future need for an elementary school. And he really liked the idea of having this park here up at the north. If you're on the full site plan on page 4, he really liked the idea of connecting the Trail to Paris, a paved walking path from the Trail to Paris through that flood zone and park to the elementary school, because he was saying that all the schools in Paris are connected via a walking trail to the Trail to Paris, and this would allow them to continue that trend. So that school portion right there, kind of in the purple or blue, is 9.15 acres. And he was thinking that they could do something smaller, probably, maybe around 5 or 6 acres, or go up larger and have an elementary school that pulls from a larger portion of the city at some point. But we went ahead and put in the 9.15, the full amount that we could donate, because it's always easier to take away than it is to try and make it bigger down the road. So we have in the plan right there 9.15 acres, and if you see, you can kind of see an example of how the Trail to Paris could connect with that walking path that comes through. And then also a park. I was talking to Andrew, and he was saying he would like the idea to have some land donated, possibly, which I thought was great, to have some sort of city park area potentially. So this is just kind of an idea of what could happen. Everything below that, if you see the school and then the single road of single family right above the school, and then right above that is not flood zone. So everything below that dotted line is not within that 100-year flood zone. So we would be open to donating that non-flood zone portion there and the rest of that flood zone area for a city park. I've been looking at it. I think it'd be great, all that wooded area, for some mountain biking or hiking and walking trails through there, and maybe a disc golf course. And then there's plenty of space to do some other things not in flood zone area. So we would be excited to donate that land as well for a city park, and we would donate that 9.15 acres to the school district for that school. So that kind of touches on that. Did you have any questions about either of those?
So is that the only buy-in that your company has as far as the school district and development of the school district, is just donating that parcel of land?
Pretty much. We're not going to get that unless we get the mic over to you.
I'm sorry. So I was just asking, is that the only buy-in that your company has with the development of the school district, is the land, that you're donating the land, whatever, however many acres, I can't remember what you said.
For the 9.15 acres?
Yes, for the development of the school district that you had spoke with Paul Jones about.
Yes, we would donate that land. We know that it wouldn't be overnight that a school would be needed. That this would need to be filled up with families and prospective students in there to be able to support it. So we wouldn't require it to be built right away. If it needed to be built 4 years down the road after this was after more families were in here and the school district needed it, we wouldn't say, oh, that's too long away to justify the donation. But yes, we would donate the land.
Yeah, my question is.
I think your question, what is happening here is not just the school, but as he said, he's donating the park, which offers, we've talked about the Safe Walk to School program, which would allow for kids going through that park, and we've discussed this with Andrew, and this is something that we'll be looking toward helping make that happen. That won't be Nathan writing checks, that will be working with the state and those other things to say, this is what we have to bring the Safe Walk to School, which you could bring through the walking trails. But over 9 acres is what he would be offering, and as well as the land for the thoroughfare, which the 9 acres, not counting the land to the thoroughfare, represents, and in addition to the park, he's giving away about 1/3 of all of the land he's purchasing, which we think is a significant contribution to the community.
I had a question about the infrastructure, water, sewer, electric, and streets.
Yes, and we can loop David in on this question too. We can loop David in on this answer too. We've had pre-development meetings with folks from the city looking at water connection, sewer, and there is adequate. There are lines, major lines stubbed on basically on both corners here along Jefferson that would need to be connected to each other, and then can be fed into that first phase north of Jefferson, and then there's some more connections over there on the loop, and then sewer is nearby as well. So we are comfortable with infrastructure based off of our pre-development meetings. David, would you like to touch on that too?
Yeah, seconding what Nathan's talking about, we've started very preliminary discussions in terms of franchise utility needs, not just the city municipal utilities. Like Nathan said, it appears head pressure, static pressure, sewerage, downstream sewer capacity from an initial look are adequate, and we've been looking at those water and sewer infrastructure costs. We are talking about traffic impact analysis at some point, again, much depending on what we talk about today in terms of thoroughfare planning, amendments to the thoroughfare plan. That would be a logical next step in terms of studying the traffic infrastructure. Drainage is discussed. We feel the existing floodplain, FEMA floodplain, can be an asset coupled with a Safe Routes to School grant. These are things that TxDOT, being the recipient of the Safe Routes program, we had initiated some on other projects in which we can build infrastructure in the drainage way, including parkland, trail, things of that nature. So infrastructure-wise, from a physical standpoint, we feel that we match up with the economic potential for this, and this is why we're excited about the potential that the physical infrastructure can return into an economic win-win for the private and public sector on it. And we'll continue to study, in particular, the traffic infrastructure coming out of this meeting, hopefully.
If I could comment just a little bit more, you see on the aerial that we have up on the computer, David, I'm sorry if I haven't been able to figure out how to get this screen to share with you. You're probably not seeing our base aerial map.
No problem.
But the intended alignment for the original thoroughfare plan is this former rail bed that runs from the loop through the middle of the property here. And we have a lot of the north area is floodplain. And as you see, the thoroughfare plan took it through this alignment up to Collegiate here. Well, you can see how much of this is low floodplain area. So in terms of the current alignment thinking for the thoroughfare plan, it would be taking New Jefferson here, which is a newly constructed roadway, and we're also very excited to hear a recent announcement from TxDOT that there'll be a sidewalk or trail constructed along New Jefferson all the way from Church over here to Collegiate and then down connecting the high school. And then what we would intend is that we would shave off this corner, bring Collegiate into more full alignment with New Jefferson, and then New Jefferson would be connected at this point on the south side of the Civic Center or the Veterans Memorial, and then follow this roughly south side of this property through the junior college property here, and then into the development site at this point, where it would then be straightened out and connect to the original thoroughfare alignment for the Collector Street, and then bringing it back to the loop at this point. So it would be a straight shot once this would ultimately be built, connecting South Church and a really nice east-west straight through alignment on a thoroughfare plan. When we talk about a major arterial, you need to think about Lamar or Clarksville, where we've got 4-lane divided, center lane, so basically 5 lanes of width. The design concept behind this thoroughfare would not be continuous left turn lanes. It would be 4 lanes divided. We'd have center median landscaped. We'd have decorative lighting, landscaping features, other thing that would create a unique feel, and character of this new development versus what we currently have in the existing commercial corridors of our city right now. That would be a good question. It would.
David?
Were you running metrics for concrete on that projection, the estimation?
David, the roadway design was a question in terms of asphalt or concrete?
So typically, what we'd like to do, our first criteria was looking at the thoroughfare plan and matching up on width. What we believe is the most viable, just based on some general, USGS soil samples and stuff. Of course, we'll do something site specific with the geotech study, but we believe concrete curb and gutters with a full depth asphalt on a crushed rock would be the most viable for the local soil there. Subject to change based on some field investigation, but that would be our prototype. We've done some similar stuff in Clarksville and in the area.
The other question the mayor had asked about utility service. This is the city's largest lift station, is immediately in proximity to this site. There is currently sewer service running through the property that ties into that lift station. So this entire site is serviceable by sewer. The city crews have recently installed some new water line connections, tying in the loop here. The development would further bring a water line along Old Jefferson, which would be the primary initial phase entry into the development, and it would extend that water line to a connecting point here, providing increased water pressure throughout the development. And then ultimately, as the thoroughfare would come in, we'd have looping and connection of water lines running along the thoroughfare as well. So it would be fully served with substantial water pressure that we do have available in the area. Chair, Mr. Lindsay.
So just looking at this, I mean, it's impressive. I mean, this addresses a number of things that Paris needs, from new rooftops to the park master plan, various different things, more commercial on the loop. That's all great. My question, I'm either going to ask the stupid question or the obvious question of Andrew and probably Grayson too. What do you need from us tonight? Do you need staff or direction to staff? What do you need us to do?
So, I mean, that's a great question. Tonight, we're not asking for any decisions. This is an opportunity for dialogue and feedback for the developer. Again, this was not advertised for any action, but we felt that based on the scale of this development, it was worthy of a dialogue beyond just bringing it forward as a regular agenda item. So beyond that, I'll let Nathan or Tessie.
both speak on that. So for us to, if we end up closing on this property and moving forward, like I said earlier, our first step would be the residential and multifamily between Jefferson and the potential future thoroughfare. So we couldn't wait for the thoroughfare to come in to do that. We would need to start going. So we need to get that, the single family, at least the single family and multifamily approved, so we can get going on that. And we know, getting a bond or getting approval, working with TxDOT, getting the thoroughfare through there, we're probably at least a year out, with getting things underway, with funding. But we need to, in order to stick with this master site plan, we need to know that the city is interested in pursuing that thoroughfare. And if we pull through on this first phase here of this single family and this multifamily, that then the city would come in and follow through with the proposed thoroughfare plan. Or else we need to redo our plan to account for not having that go through there. One of the reasons that we were able to put the school in the park and everything was because of this thoroughfare going through. We feel like it benefits both us and the city because we were able to sacrifice some land away based off of this increased value of commercial, which increases value for us and also increases tax dollars. So we thought it was a great idea. But if the thoroughfare is not something that the city thinks they're going to go forward with, we would need to change our direction and go back to how we were originally. We're thinking just residential throughout the whole process. So we don't want to say, hey, one, we can't afford to just sit on the property for that long, but we don't want to say, hey, put the thoroughfare in and then we'll come in. We would come in with this first phase first while that process is going on, getting funding, as long as there is a plan to get that thoroughfare committed and built. So because we don't, even if we just, how we would do single family in this first phase anyway, whether or not the thoroughfare's there or not, the streets, the layout of all that single family would be different. So we would need this single family approved and the multifamily approved, and then some sort of understanding that if we pull through, the city, is behind us pulling through. If we end up pulling through, that the city would pull through with pursuing the thoroughfare and getting that funded as well.
Yeah, also a big part of this is that originally, when we first got a hold of the property, we weren't informed about the road. So we didn't know, and so what we were looking at would be reserving this first part where we would do, now we would like to do single family at the beginning. This would be drawn differently because we would reserve that until we filled this up with single and multifamily and then put some commercial along here. So it changes the entire dynamic, because if we start the single family, which will be a nice, beautiful development, and we build back here, we can't have commercial back here if there's no thoroughfare. So we're really just looking, and we're not asking you to go pay for anything or go do anything yet, but we want to know if we go and take all this and invest all this money, it's a large sum, to do this and do the multifamily, are you guys going to go ahead and come through? You plan a thoroughfare anyway, but can we do it and this way? That's really where we're going.
Clayton Pilgrim, District 6. What's our fellows on the? David, can you hear us, David?
Yes, sir.
So I did just cowboy math. There's 143 lots in phase one. Sam's likes cowboy math, so we're going to go with cowboy math. Is there 183 in phase one? Okay, well, it's even better. But I just did $100,000 value per lot, which is substantially less than what it really is going to be. And you take the current tax rate at the school, and I was explaining to Mr. Savage, at $1.2517, that's our current tax rate for the city of Paris. I'm sorry, for PISD. That's $178,000, just really watered down, way low valued, $178,993 a year. And you could at least double that, in my opinion. So being conservative here with our numbers, and then $65,000 directly to the city, that's just in phase one. That's not including any of the mixed use. Obviously, those properties be a lot more value. And then the value on the 9.15 acres, I valued it around $25,000 an acre. If thoroughfares through there, that's what he's given to the school. That's another $250,000. So there's a huge investment here in the sense, and I've got a lot of knowledge of this product. I've known Tessie for a long time, and we've talked in length to this thing because I want to get it here and get it in front of Andrew. And me and Andrew's talked in it at length, and so I've got a lot of knowledge of the product that they're trying to put forth here. But in my opinion, we get a lot of these big ideas that come into the city council and things that are, they're Swiss cheese most of the time. There's a lot of holes in them, and we can't prove that those guys have the ability or the want to, or maybe there's another option that they're trying to, or a different angle they're trying to go at. I don't know what, but this, in my opinion, from a real estate perspective and as being on the city council, I think it's a home run if we can figure out something that makes sense for Grayson and Gene and Andrew to afford it on the thoroughfare side, and for them to finish development. Obviously, I don't want to give them a thoroughfare without them having some skin in the game on the deal and saying, hey, we're gonna do this phase one. That's kind of, I'm thinking, the process and what I'm thinking that we have to do. That way our constituents, our taxpayers are happy, and then also our staff's happy, because we've got a budget deal that we've got. Everything in the world needs money right now, and we talked about that earlier at budget meeting. So I think the investment side of it is they're not requesting abatements, they're not requesting any kind of tax deferred, any of that kind of stuff, and that's huge for the city and for the schools and for the college. I would assume, I'm not sure if Dr. Anglin has been, I think we've talked a little bit about it. I have with her tiny bit, but moving that thoroughfare to the south and going directly west obviously gets it all out of the floodplain and away from the baseball parks and having to rechange everything there. That thoroughfare going straight through, and it's crazy to think that $7 million is what it takes, but that's what everything's way over the top as far as expense from what we were even 5 years ago. But thinking forward and thinking ahead, because we're way behind on residential development in Paris. We've talked about it at a meeting before. We're 6 million houses behind the United States, and only 2 million is going to be built. So I'd love for 180 or however many you can plan out in your development to make it happen in Paris. And whatever I can do as a city council, I can't speak for the rest of my council, but I can say that I'm definitely in the forward moving thinking of, I think, we need to try to figure out some way to make it palatable for everybody.
I agree completely with Clayton. Quick question in regards to this project. I would assume that you're the sole developer in the housing and everything with that. Is that correct? Or are you outsourcing this to someone else to develop the housing?
As far as build the houses, yes, we would not go vertical with the houses.
Okay, so then, have you done any other projects outside of Paris?
Any
Similar to this?
a PD this big, I have not.
Sorry about that.
A PD of this scale, I personally have not. My partner has done 4 to 5 of these size planned developments in Arizona and in Texas. I don't have the large scale PD experience portion to the table. That would be my partner. David is doing the engineering work for all of this, but he's also staying on after all the engineering's done in a management role on the team for managing general contractors and managing the plan development in that regard, because he has a lot of experience in DFW and all across Texas with projects of this scale. And then someone else who's invaluable on our team is Tessina Painter with getting all the commercial.
Yeah, I have been fortunate to be a part of, and still am a part of, different projects. I mostly started out doing land assemblage, acquisition, and then I got into the public-private finance. I was part of the group that got the historic tax credit legislation bill passed in Texas. I've worked on numerous projects there. I even am involved still in, I did the acquisition, and I'm involved in the development of a former Pilgrim's Pride building in Dallas that he knows about. So I've worked with projects like this before, not as the developer, but as part of the development team. So I think Nathan's done a really good job of surrounding himself with other people, and he's developed duplexes and so forth while he's in college and law school. He's an attorney. So, yeah, so he has that experience, but he's smart enough to surround himself with people that have more experience, and then we're, coming in with this. And, I've visited Paris for a few years now, and I really like it. I think you have a lot of opportunity here. I think I think you're in a good position for some nice growth.
And
Yeah.
kind of digging in, I guess, more, if you're curious on my role, I focus on all the contracting, getting the business entities up and running, working on bringing the right partners in, getting joint venture agreements, worked out, to bring in the knowledge and experience levels to require this. There's tens of millions of dollars of horizontal in this project that goes through serious underwriting, and if you don't have the right players, you're not even going to break ground. So that's part of it. I do the legwork. I go out, find the right properties. I got really interested in Paris based off all the exciting growth that's going on out here, and found this property, got it under contract, do the legwork of getting the engineering, working on the site plans, and making sure that the partners that are the partners in the project that do have the plan development experience have input on the site plan all the way through with engineering, and do legwork with all the contracting issues and pro formas for the financing, and then, like I said, my partner and some others have the major plan development experience for underwriting.
I didn't have a question. I just wanted to see you run around. I'm kidding. Before I do ask my question, I think that, in my opinion, we would definitely want this to move forward. And from a planning and zoning standpoint, we would like to see the zoning come before us at a future meeting. But as far as planning and zoning members here tonight, do we have a general consensus that that's kind of how we feel? We'd like to see it move forward, and from a zoning standpoint, nothing looks awful. Okay. Okay. Now, my next question, mainly clarification, what you were saying earlier. If the city says, yes, we want to help build this thoroughfare, we just need to find a way to pay for it, you said that you will start building phase one at that point, and I think Grayson might have said that there's a chance that if we bond this out, it could go to a vote.
I have to do some research.
Okay, if that were the case, that would take a lot of time, and there's every chance in the world that the vote could come back no. In that case, I mean, I wouldn't, from a city standpoint, want to kind of stick you with what you're doing, and we're not doing our part, but that would be a real possibility. So how would that factor into things?
I'm going to make one comment on that. Irrespective of a thoroughfare, our plan does call for Collector Street here. So there is an implied level of responsibility that there will be a Collector Street, there will be access from the loop provided through this right-of-way alignment that's identified in the plan. So at a bare minimum, the development drives the need for the new Collector Street to be constructed, very much like we're working with the school district in North Lamar. So there is a street that needs to be constructed. Now, whether or not a bonding issue requires a public vote or not, I don't know. I guess I'd be surprised if it would, but that's research that our city attorney will need to further look into. But I can see the point where whether or not the city chooses to participate, there will still be a roadway intended here. It may not be as big of a capacity. It may not end up ultimately tying in with New Jefferson the way that we're envisioning here, but I can certainly see that you lay plans out, you work toward the plan, and implement it over time. And so that's what good planning does. And right now, through this process, as well as the very first phase a year ago when I first started, we looked at this thoroughfare alignment. We said that the plan didn't make a lot of sense. We think this change in the plan will make more sense. That is something we want to bring forward as a part of this development. And there will be a number of, agenda items that will involve the rezoning, it will involve the platting, it will involve the amendment to the thoroughfare plan. So that's what we're anticipating at this point, is this would move forward through the formal approval stages.
I'm term limited. How fast can we do it?
We can probably get started pretty quick, I suspect.
So to answer your questions, the plan is if we get approval that this thoroughfare trajectory and the plan is going to be pursued and a bond's going to be put up, we would do this first phase. We would start it because, like we said, this would take some time. If it ended up getting not approved, if it needed a vote and the vote was not sufficient and it didn't pass, we would replan everything north of this first phase. We would be stuck at that point with, depending on how far in we were on horizontal, we would be stuck with those cul-de-sacs there and some other, everything in that first phase. And then we would replan the rest of it. We would work with TxDOT to figure out how to manage traffic flows to get to the loop, if necessary, depending on when it's necessary, to get to the loop for this multifamily, and we would do the rest residential. If that was to not pass, we would not dead end a roadway here on the western portion of the property on page 4, how it dead ends there, and we'll continue into the community college land. We would work with TxDOT on figuring out how to service this individual community to the loop to manage traffic flows that would be required in the development. And then we probably couldn't support the school on 9+ acres with the school. We would have to, right, there wouldn't be access for it, and then we wouldn't be able to have the commercial that we're able to justify that. So we would everything north of that first phase, everything below the thoroughfare, all that mixed use and above, we would have to change it and work with TxDOT on how to get, minor, just regular neighborhood roads, a neighborhood road connecting to the loop over there if need be with traffic flows, if that makes sense. Did you have something?
Yeah, I've worked on a variety of projects involving public-private finance, and I know Clayton had said that you have some 380 grant money. There are all kinds of ways to move money around, and there are all kinds of things available, different places, and I can't believe that we have a room full of people that want something, and $7 million is not insurmountable, and that we can't get it done when we're creating tax revenue, sales tax, we're creating all these things. So I'm of the opinion that it can get done. Nobody's saying it has to be done before we start down here. We just have to have a commitment to make a big effort to make that, rather than that we're going to go after the thoroughfare.
Yeah, I can jump in. This is David one more time. My background, Nathan and I got connected on this project was at the City of Dallas. I was working at City Hall in charge of the municipal side of the public-private partnership. So again, to further the discussion, there were numerous creative ways in which we'd enter into interlocal agreements or ask for calls for funding and such, tied in that safe routes to school idea, and various ways to finance. So speaking with Nathan, we'd like to come to the table with creative ideas to make this work, and I think that there's the team spirit here to where we could do that.
I agree with members of the P&Z and the council who've spoken that this is a wonderful development possibility. I disagree with Chairman Lindsay just a bit. I don't think it's very likely that this would fail. No, okay. It's a possibility that it could. Mr. Norman and I have worked on a citywide referendum election that very possibly could have failed, but it passed 75 25 in our favor, the city's favor, for keeping the Economic Development Corporation. And that was 4 or 5 years ago when I was very first on the council. And I've just seen positive reaction from citizens ever since then, and lots of positive things that have happened. So I really think, you know, if we do have to take it to an election, and I think we do from experience living in other cities, that could happen. But I think our business community would get behind this and see the benefit to our local banks, or just a lot of benefit to the local economy. And I can't imagine that it wouldn't pass. Oh, sure.
Can I ask who's funding your project? Do you mind if I ask that? I'll bring it in, Drew. You've been working hard. Yeah.
I'm the Phil Donahue, I guess, tonight here.
No. Yes, it's all. Did you ask the question?
Yes.
Oh, yes. It's all private funding. It's all private funding, and something that we're willing to talk about bringing to the table as well. Like I said, I haven't done a property that's been this impacted by a thoroughfare before, but when we've looked at other properties, and there's a city thoroughfare or a city major roadway going through a portion of the property, or is going to border it and cut in, it's always been looked at to be compensated for that land, and we would not be looking for that. So everything where this thoroughfare is impacting the property, where it's going through the property, we wouldn't be asking or looking for compensation for that property. We would be donating that portion of the property that the thoroughfare will go through. So we wouldn't be looking for compensation from the thoroughfare either for the property that goes through. Do you have something?
So I have a question for David. In your calculations, isn't the cost of the land usually a part of that, cost per mile? David, are you there? In general, I know it is.
Yes, I just didn't hear.
Yeah, no, but that's generally it's calculated in other words, in your cost per mile, the cost of the dirt is part of it, correct?
Right, yeah, that's an overall rule of thumb design build from hard to soft cost. There's a financing component, there's a franchise utility, there's from dirt to subsurface utilities, municipal and franchise. So I think coming out of the meeting, we can flesh that out a little more. Nathan and I have looked at some global project costs, and then we kind of break that out. And of course, there's some contingencies in there at this very preliminary stage of engineering. So very rough rule of thumb, very rough number for planning purposes, to be the pencil to be sharpened and kind of honed in depending on the intricacies of how we build this, yes.
Yeah, but that's a contribution. So that's just another contribution for it.
I'll get it.
You're trying to get your steps in.
I need to. I think that you guys have given us a really great idea of what this could be, and honestly, I hope it is. At this point, is there anybody who'd like to ask any more questions, or did you have anything else to add before we start wrapping things up?
If no one else has anything, I guess I guess my question would be, time frame on how we could get, if not formal things in writing, some sort of maybe something resembling a letter of intent, and then how quickly can we get this single family and the multifamily zoned? Is it beneficial from a planning and zoning standpoint to go ahead and do the zoning for the single family and the multifamily before trying to get a whole PD approved? If the PD approval would be slowed down by a formal approval of the thoroughfare, so I guess to recap, is there a way that we can get some sort of non-binding, but letter of interest from the P&Z and City Council to pursue the thoroughfare in this trajectory? And then how quickly can we get zoning done for those first phases?
I can answer this question, Nathan. So I'm gonna respond to that. We obviously have a formal process built into any changes of zoning for land, for development, standard platting processes. We have basically evolved enough at this point through the concept plan to undertake a change in zoning for planned development, whether we do that zoning change in increments or for the entire near 200 acres. That's for me to work out yet with the developer and the applicant. But in terms of process, we are ready to bring this forward through the next cycle. I mean, if the developer wanted to apply essentially as soon as tomorrow, we'd have this before the P&Z on their May cycle, and it would come before the council before the end of May for the zoning change. In terms of letters of commitment, I don't envision exactly what that would consist of. You're being asked there, but the answers will come through your actions to actually change the zoning, amend the thoroughfare plan, and make formal decisions through our normal development process. So that's how those answers would come forth. In terms of a larger question, we certainly will be able to undertake research on just exactly what would be involved with approving, a bond referendum or a bond issue for construction of public improvements. We'd need to further vet what TxDOT's participation and involvement would be in this is in terms of aligning a new road right away and how that ownership exchange would take place between Old Jefferson and a new Jefferson thoroughfare extension. So that will take further discovery. But we're just literally embarking on the first stage of engagement with our elected and appointed officials tonight, and we are ready to move forward with you should you choose to undertake the change applications that we'll work with you on.
Part of the question in this process, and this has been done with even the city of Dallas, if you can believe it, so it's very doable, is something non-binding that says, we've seen the proposal and we're in favor of the general concept and we believe that much of it will be approved. That kind of very general non-binding helps us move forward with our plans, because Nathan's about to spend a whole lot of money on doing this and getting going, and then we're going to have other people. We want to start moving the ball forward in that process, which involves engaging other people. And it just gives us something that says, hey, the city of Paris is favorable for this. It doesn't say it's not binding. It doesn't say that you guys, hey, we're going to stamp this approval. But we like the plan. We think it's doable, and much of it will likely be approved. And the single family will likely be approved. Nothing that says we have to. You still can pull out, the black card and say no. But something that says there's a strong chance. We really like this single family. We really like this multifamily, and we're, welcoming his application kind of thing. That's very general, and it is non-binding, and other cities have done it. Even cities much more difficult.
And something kind of, sorry.
I was going to hand it over to her. You go ahead.
Okay.
And just another kind of thought, part of my thought process, just closing alone on the property, having this thoroughfare kind of unknown to a certain extent of what is going to happen. Does the city council, P&Z, think this is feasible? There's something non-binding would give a lot of comfort in closing on this property that this is actually something that they see is in the realm of reality.
So we can take a straw poll.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're getting your steps in.
Yeah, it's my turn. Which you've already got a consensus from the planning and zoning. I don't know that planning and zoning can really do a letter of intent or a resolution, but the city council.
Resolution, just yeah, go ahead.
City attorney advises me that a resolution of intent, we've done that type of thing before. our next meeting, it's too late to be on the agenda. So our next meeting would be April 25th, which sounds like you would like to move faster than that. We could discuss, have a called meeting. That would be the only thing on the agenda. And that's kind of for staff and me maybe to discuss. I know we've got we've had 2 meetings today, so, but that's the route we would go, and a resolution would be a formal way to do that. Mr. Path? I'm sorry, I could get up, but I'm old.
We still have time to amend the meeting for Monday. So, yeah, as long as we do it by tomorrow, we can put it on Monday's agenda if we need to.
Done.
If I see consensus amongst my council members that that's what you're looking at doing, I'm seeing some heads shaking yes. And so, yeah, we can work to do that, so.
Can you ask a question for me? You can ask it. Does, Andrew, does this fit in the area of the 5-on-5 program, 5-in-5, I mean?
This is outside of our
Okay.
5-in-5 infill program, unfortunately, but this is a different concept. This is new. This could become one of the new exceptional neighborhoods, literally, in our city of Paris. This is a blank slate right now, and so we have a very creative design presented before us. I continue to remain excited about this. I've really enjoyed working with Nathan from the outset on this, and I think we have a great opportunity. If we were to bring this to the council in a non-binding resolution, we can move, directly into the more formal approval stages immediately thereafter, just as fast as the developer would like to proceed. Some of those things can still be done before you close on the property, provided we have signature on the application forms. So I think with that, I'd like to turn it back to the chair to wrap up our meeting.
Anybody else have any?
We actually had a second item on the agenda, but we're going to push that off for a future discussion, especially since the council did goals today.
Chad, when was the last time that, you can ask this on the microphone and record it, but when was the last time we've had a development in Paris? A residential development in the city limits or maybe even inside the loop?
Clayton's asking when the last time we had a residential development like this inside the loop was. I don't remember one.
Said it was a Spring Lake.
Yes, it's been a long, long time. Clayton, I don't really know the answer to that question. We've never had anything exactly like this ever. So this is very exciting.
Morningside might be your closest.
Yeah.
Not a mixed use.
That's outside the loop.
Yeah, City.
I do know that when we changed the planned development zoning several years ago, we kind of joked that, God, we wish we needed it, and here we are. Anybody have any more questions or anything else?
Just real quick for whoever's watching and just for the record, I think that this would reflect that the city council is actually wanting to work with developers. So just a real quick tidbit there, the city staff is working hard on this. So just wanted to throw that out there. There you go.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, thank you all so much for the welcome, the warm greeting, welcome, engagement, interest. It's wonderful. And I have to tell you, not knowing any rules, not thinking about any rules or anything, I might have brought 2 cakes over there. And they're from a place called, Unrefined Bakery. And if I didn't tell you, you wouldn't know it, but they're gluten-free and they're free of any allergens. So there's no soy, there's no corn, there's a bunch of stuff, but they're gluten-free. I wish I could tell you that they were keto. They're not, but they're amazing. And we have plates and all that kind of stuff, because I figured it's dinner time. Somebody's got to have something. So anyway, but it's.
And as we close, I'll just reiterate to thank everyone for coming out on an unscheduled meeting day at 5:30. I know everyone has lots of things going on and other work and family, and so I really appreciate everyone coming out to have this special meeting and welcoming us so much.
You bet. move for adjournment, Chairman.
All right, we have a motion on planning and zoning to adjourn. Second, all in favor?
A motion for the city council to adjourn. Motion, second, all in favor? Adjourn.